call to order this June 15th, 2026 Thornapple Kellogg Schools Board of Education regular scheduled meeting. Have a roll call of the board, please.
Brock?
Here.
Hess here. Winger?
Here.
Hilton? Price?
Here.
Stanton? Flickema?
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hess. Pledge allegiance. The flag is in the back, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item is the adoption of the agenda. Looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Support.
We got a motion by Mr. Winger and support by Mr. Price. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? All right, thank you, board. Our first item on the agenda is a public hearing on the proposed property tax millage rate in 2026-2027 budget.
All right, well, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Brock. So tonight I will try to jump through this as quick as I can. There is a lot of information, so I apologize for the length and for the font. It does appear a little bit small on the screen. But with that being said, just going to jump in. Tonight we're going to cover, though, a few funds: the general fund, food service fund, student activity fund, and then finally the library fund, looking at the 25-26 final budget as well as the 26-27 appropriation or initial budget for next year. So with that being said, up here is our general fund. We have 5 columns, starting with the actual of what we were at the end of 24-25 school year, which you can see slight deficit of $185,000 with a very healthy 19.33% fund balance. The middle 3 columns are the 3 budget proposals we've had since last June, this past February, and then again tonight. And then the far right column is our appropriation budget. So the far 2 right columns are essentially what we will be approving in tonight's budget later in the meeting. So with 25-26, you can see we started the school year with a deficit just shy of $1.5 million. With all 3 budget proposals, we've been into that $1.4 to $1.5 million deficit. With that being said, you can see on the bottom right, it's going to be a 14.61% fund balance. Now, I want to give you a caveat with that because if you look to the very top, you can see our revision 1, the revenues jumped from $50 million to north of $51 million. That was a lot of categorical grants that you can see the increase in revenue and increase in expense. However, with that being said, there was no way that we were able to hire and make all the adjustments to expend the expenses and then therefore recognize the revenue. So when we get our final audit, I would expect that 14.61 to jump to maybe 16 or even north of that, because it's going to be that fund balance of $7,545,000 divided by a smaller amount, since we're not going to be recognizing the expenses or revenue. So just so we're clear on that. And then as you can see, we dropped down next year to just north of $50 million in revenues. I'll hit on a couple items in the assumptions that really drove this budget for next year. But with that being said, a couple other items that I want to highlight. In the middle to the right of the screen, you can see a transfer out, or actually transfer in. This is food service budget. Last year and in our first 2 budget proposals, we had $75,000. That was based on the indirect cost, with the food service fund having a healthy fund balance and our general fund not. We can take more of food service money into the general fund. So I did up that by an extra $25,000. However, below that, you can see that we have $10,000 going out of our general fund, and that's going into our library fund. And I'll get into the weeds of that, of why we're doing that, but it's something that we have to do, but I'll touch base on that here in a minute. Okay, so just want to really highlight the assumptions that we had for the next school year for our general fund. Enrollment projection, this is at 2960. This past year, we've been at 2996.2, therefore a drop of 36.2 FTE. If there's any indication how they do the enrollment blend, we know 10% of next year's budget. That's going to be 2,984.12, and that was based on the February count that we just recently had. The other 90% is going to be based on the fall October count. However, with that being said, one or two of the proposals that we received from the House, Senate, governors made an indication that they may do away with the 90-10 split and go to a 3-year blended model. So all in all, I'm still going with this assumption that it's going to be blended on the 90-10, but there may be some possibility of it going a different direction. But once we see the final budget and what comes out of conference committee, you know, we'll be able to adjust on the fly and keep you guys informed. So. Okay, so with that being said, you know, other factors that, you know, went into this 2960 and this drop of 36.2 FTE, our 2026 senior class, every time I look at, you know, who's leaving and who's coming in. So senior class, 227 roughly. Unfortunately, our kindergarten enrollment has only been roughly 200. So right there, you have another drop. And then any attrition, you know, of the grade level bands, you know, between K and 12th grade. So, you know, incoming kindergarten, that's always our wild card, right? Because we just don't know. However, now that we have GSRP in-house, it will hopefully, you know, be that stepping stone into our kindergarten. So, you know, hopefully we're going to start getting data because we are just wrapping up year 1, and then we'll be in year 2 next year. And then finally, you know, just this time last year, we didn't have those apartments. So what kind of impact does that have? I put declining birth rates. That's another thing. It's not an issue just here at TK. You know, we're 7 years of declining enrollment, but that's a trend not only here, but Berry County, Kent County, statewide, nationwide. It's all across the board. Okay, so the other side of the coin of what drives our unrestricted revenue is our foundation allowance. This was pretty easy to project for at least our initial budget, based on the fact that all three, the governor, the House, and the Senate, proposed the same amount. That was $10,300, $250 increase from our current $10,050, or a 2.5% increase. Another caveat is that there has been discussion on some of this categorical funding being rolled up into the foundation allowance. So what was once restricted funding, where you had strings attached, let's say, possibly could be unrestricted as we move forward. But until we see the governor's proposal and ultimately what she signs out of conference committee, we don't know where that goes. But I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, major revenue changes on the general fund side, strong taxable value growth. This has been, the last several years, been doing very, very well. I have in my budget a 5% increase, you know, so whether that be our local tax revenue, our Act 18, the special ed countywide millage, or the enhancement millage through Kent County, we're projecting up 5%. Lowered interest rate. This is something that we get about $250,000 as I essentially invest daily from our excess cash flows so that we can make the most of our money. Currently, though, we're down about 65 basis points year to date. This time last year was 4.15. Rates have just been trending downward. If you took a look at the grants, you saw we were about 50 million, now we're about 51 million. A lot of that is related to this, and also thus the reason why 26-27 is also significantly down from our final budget of 25-26. We have many grants that are going to no longer be there or have been greatly reduced. This is a laundry list of grants that were here this past year that we will no longer have for the 26-27. Many of them were just one-time grants, like the Filter First. We were able to capture, you know, some water, drinking fountains. We had the GSRP startup funds where we got $320,000. Then the two at the bottom, though, they're still there, but we're looking to have those reduced. 147C funds, which is related to ORS or retirement. We have projected down $162,000, and then 31 AA mental health. As you recall, we had conversations, do we opt in, do we opt out? We elected to opt in along with about, I think, 6 others in Kent County of the 20 districts. Therefore, they took our money and did it in relation to how many opted in out of the entire state. With that being said, our allocation jumped from 450,000 roughly to 1.116 million. So that huge influx was awesome to have, but that goes to back to the fact of we don't have time to expend that when we received it in February or March, and that's going to become what's called carryover funds for the 26-27 school year. All right. Jumping ahead, so on the expense side of things, staffing is always number one. When it comes, we're in the people business. Most budgets are 80 to 85% staffing. That's who we serve. So here are where we see sections going up or down. In total, we have 10 sections going down, or 10 positions, and then 9 going up. However, of the 9 going up, 4 are fully funded with categorical 31A, 31AA funding that we've discussed in the past. So those are the ones with the asterisk. So in total, we're really down about 5 positions. Okay, compensation. This is based on contracts. TKEA, you'll see in tonight's, we have a contract wage opener that we had. Our support staff, we're in year 2 of 3. Administrators, we're getting what the support staff get in GSRP. Non-represented, they don't have steps, so we went with 4.5 for them, and then GSRP is a step in 3.5. Retirement rate. Outside of salaries, this is probably your next biggest expense in the district budget on our general fund. So in the past, we had up to probably 10 different retirement rates. It's kind of crazy to target each one, but our highest one, starting this October, is going to be 27.51, which is a decrease of 2.4% from the current 29.91%. When I talked at the previous slide on the revenue that our 147C funds were going to go down, this is the offset to that. Our expenses are also going down because we're not charged as high of a rate as we move forward. Outside of that, insurance, we follow what's called Public Act 152. This is the most amount of money a district can expend on behalf of medical cost. For the calendar year, now keep in mind, we have fiscal year and we have calendar year. Calendar year is January 1 to December 31st. When I say fiscal, July 1st to June 30th. So calendar year, it's going up 3%. For 2026, it was 2.9%. The rates you see in front of us are the 2027 rates. That's how much we expend on behalf of a person who elects single subscriber insurance, 2-person insurance, or full family. One outstanding item that we don't have clarity on at this point, and is currently at the Supreme Court, is what's called House Bill 6058. When it came out, I think in December of 2024, I kind of prefaced some things on that. That's still waiting in the wings of seeing, is that going to be settled or not? Hopefully, we have a decision on that this summer. That is not in this budget, but that would be another 7% on top. And a cost of, time I checked, about $350,000. So just want to lead you with that. Okay, that's the general fund. Food service. I'll try to zip through these. So instead of 5 columns, we have 4 because we do not do a revision 1 in the middle of the year. Healthy all across the bottom. You can see actual budget from last year. We're down several $100,000. We've lost students, so our meal claim reimbursement is not as high. We also had a specific grant that was called supply chain grant. So you'll see we had $130,000 in a revenue and expense in the 24-25 fiscal year that we do not have in the 25-26 or in the 26-27. The other big thing that we had in 2024-25 was $326,000 in expenditures, whether it be all the tables we bought, the hydroponics. That $326,000 though, we had $12,000 that we expended in equipment in this current fiscal year. As we head into next year, you can see more of a deficit where we have a deficit of $135,000 before we do a $115,000 transfer based on the indirect cost that's going to shift over to the general fund, but still ending the year with roughly 20% fund balance. So all in all, doing very good on our food service budget. When I talk about food service, one thing that I like to see is what are the meals served, because that is really what drives our revenue, what should drive our food cost. which are really the major expenses outside of our salary and benefits. You know, for being down what we are in FTE this current year compared to last year, to be down 0.59% on our breakfast is great to see. However, on our food service lunch meals, we're down 5.31%, or almost 19,000 meals. That's something I want to look into to make sure, hey, are kids eating or not eating because they don't like the food? What may it be? Or just so that we can make sure kids are eating. When kids eat, we know test scores go up. They're more engaged in what have you, so.
Mark, a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is that adjusted for snow days?
Yeah, so this would be including snow days on each year. You know, I know this year we had 7.
January, we had quite a.
Yeah, so that might be why you see, yeah, one drop, yep. So, and some days may just not line up, you know, it might have been a weekend versus, yeah.
Number of days actually in school.
So, okay, student activities account. So this is really, I'm just gonna throw it out there, very extremely hard to budget. This is all of our clubs, groups, you know, this might be your soccer club, your football club, you know, OM, where they fundraise and then they wanna buy t-shirts or something for their club. So we're really at the mercy of when do they wanna, you know, fundraise and when do they wanna expend the funds that they did fundraise. So with that being said, this year how we did it is took actual expenditures from July through the end of May and then look at what did we expend for both revenues and revenues that we brought in for the month of June and added it to it. And then we also copied that budget for next year because there's just no really way to gauge, you know, the money that we bring in or expend and when that's gonna occur. So with that being said, just a couple of highlights, you know, roughly about 107 different expense accounts. We're tracking revenues and expenses for every different account. Like I said, 26, 27, we're using current year to help predict next year, and 25, 26, we're looking at the expenses and revenues through the end of May and looking at the prior year, June of 2025, to add that to that month so that we can get a whole year of data. But overall, extremely healthy as we move forward. Okay, lastly, public library fund. This is a very small fund. Revenues, we're talking 30,000, expenses a little bit more than that. As I mentioned on the very first slide, we had 10,000 we had to shift over. The reason for that is if we didn't, you would see a fund balance in the negative. It's now at 9,406, but next year, we're also looking to dip in by 9385. So once again, I'm shifting 10,000 over. As the longer we keep the library, you know, the more the general fund is gonna have to supplant to keep that operational because, you know, all in all, the revenues that we get limited state resources, penal fines from Allegan, Berry, Kent, Ionia, and then a majority of the expense side of things is, it's called Lakeland, and that's the contract that we have with them to, you know, it's how to organize the books and, you know, track the system of tracking all the books in and out. Okay, finally, talk about the tax levy operating. So we are once again levying 18 mills. Now this is on non-homestead property. This would be your industrial, commercial, second homes, vacation homes. This generates roughly $3.9 million that if we did not have this, we would lose out of our general fund. We are once again in what's called a Headley rollback situation. That's anytime our taxable value growth exceeds the CPI or Consumer Price Index. Luckily, before I got here, May of 2024, you guys looked to do a additional 0.5 mil increase where you already had 0.9923 mils. That's an override on the 18 should we ever be subject to rollback. Well, since we are now being rolled back, that 1.4923 is with the millage reduction fraction that we have this year of 0.9890, we have a maximum allowable millage of 19.0291. Now, this is on the L-4029 that, you know, Troon does with us. Kent County sends us the information. But this is something that we need to keep a close eye on. Wyoming Public Schools, they got caught this year where the taxable value was so high that they are not able to levy the 18 mills. Even though they had an override in, it dropped so far that, you know, maybe they can only levy, let's say, 17.7, But, you know, that 3.9 million would then go down if we don't have that override allowable. The key thing, though, is we never levy more than 18. You can't. So that's where we're at. On the opposite side, the debt service levy. Now, this is 9.65 mils. Now, this is on all property. This is for the 5 qualified debt bonds that we have. This is what we, PFM, we pay them. They help us determine, you know, based on our outstanding debt, you know, how much do we need to levy. And good news for this year is there's no increase, but also no decrease for the 26-27 school year, and that generates roughly $10 million on winter taxes to pay down our debt. And then lastly, just want to leave you with tax levy information. You know, it was PFM. Trune looked at the L-4029. We'll have to get a couple signatures at the end of the meeting that Erica will provide. And just want to say, yeah, strong taxable value growth where it's going to give us flexibility in future bonding capacities down the road. So we'll determine as a board what you guys want to do with that as we see fit. So, and then lastly, just taxable value all property, just to show you where things are at. We're over $1 billion now, you know, so back in 2016, 11 years ago, 10 years ago, you know, 565, so almost nearly doubled. And, you know, this past year, we got 7.43%. So very strong on that. So with that being said, that's all I have. Apologize for the long-windedness,
Mr. Provost, that was
but
great.
roughly
Thank
two.
you. For all you accountants, bookkeepers, math teachers, that was exciting. Everyone else, this is your call to pay back attention. All right, here we go. Next item on our agenda. Thank you, Mr. Provost.
Yep.
Riveting. We're gonna have some student recognition. Board, we wanna hop in front here, and Mrs. Wilkinson can present some certificates.
Hi, thank you for coming. Thanks for having us. I'm here today as the high school girls track coach, and we had 4 girls go to state this year in D1. Mia here, Hilton, who, just to give you an idea, she has been all-state 6 different times. So she was all-state her freshman year in the 300 hurdles and in the 4x400. And that year they ran a 4:10 and took 6th in D2, just to give you an idea of how fast they are this year. And then the next year they ran D2, or the first year she actually only was in 300 hurdles, then she got a little sick, so we had to call Ava in, and so she ran with us. So they ran a 4:10. Then the next year we were D2 again, and they took 6th again. They ran a 4:06, so it took 4 seconds off, but still the same place in D2. Last year they had a school record at 4 minutes flat, a little bit over that, and they were 12th in D1. That's the first year that we went to D1, so I'm okay with our enrollment going down to go back to D2. But this year, they had a school record 2 different times. They did it against South Christian and then again in the finals. And they placed 4th in the 4x400 this year in D1, and they ran a 3:57 flat. So they're going to nationals this Sunday. So Mia, and then Peyton Gator, who's been part of the 4x400 team for 3 years, Amaya Gator, and Ellie Harmon. And then Brooklyn's been part of the 4x400, but she graduated. So the team was really good this year. They're really hard workers. They do anything that I ask them to and try new things. And she pole vaults, and she doesn't really enjoy, I mean, she's good at it, but she'd rather just run and do hurdles. But they're really, really good. They're very fast. We were first in the conference again. So it's been a fun year. She's also academic all-state all 4 years. And in order to be academic all-state, you have to go to the state meet. You can't be academics all-state, and you have to place. If you don't place, you're not academic all-state. However, the 1 year that she didn't, she had a 4.0, so then she was academic all-state. So that's Ellie that we're recognizing. She's not here. Peyton and Amaya are down in Kentucky because she's doing her orientation because she's going to she's recruited to do stunts there. And then Mia, when was your orientation?
I haven't had it yet.
Oh, she's going to Indiana Wesleyan, and she's going to cheer there. So, yeah. So,
Go ahead.
Thanks for having us.
Before we leave, Mrs. Wilkinson's also retiring this year. Thank you for your years and dedication to the
Thank you.
community. All right. Just so everyone knows, that is one of the best parts of the school board meetings, when we have students in here to do many of things, but we really enjoy that. So I appreciate Ms. Holton, you coming, and Ms. Wilson, you presenting. That is special to us. But, all right, our next item is the superintendent report. Ms. Bausch.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mr. President and Board. It's a beautiful evening with a good audience here tonight. So again, congratulations to that track team. And we heard many positive things about that group throughout this year. So congratulations. We have 4 updates this evening. The first update that we have relates to the American Heart Association Kids Challenge that we have at Lee Elementary. Deputy Superintendent Provost and I, we were notified by American Heart Association prior to the meeting a couple weeks ago that Lee Elementary is #1 in our state for lifetime fundraising at over $632,000. This year alone, 191 students participated, raising over $23,000. So to our community, our parents, our kids, our staff, you talk about lifetime of $632,000. That says a lot about our staff, students, and community. So I wanted to make sure we share that with the board and also share it with our community. Those things might not always make the front page of the newspaper, but we all know at the bottom of our hearts that that $632,000 is having a positive impact. So thank you to Lee Elementary for that. Second, thanks to Trustee Hess, I had the opportunity to view a video of our middle school band that had the chance to play at the Tigers game last week. So it was a sunny day. We had our TK shirts on. We had a good crowd, I could tell by the video. And just what a great way to showcase some of the wonderful things that we have going on. And if my eyes were shut and I wasn't watching the video, you would have thought it would have been we are famous, but anybody else who's famous, who might get on TV more often, you would have thought it would have been their performance. I thought it was marvelous. So thank you to those students and parents who chaperoned and our staff who worked relentlessly to what I'm going to say is have a flawless performance at the Tigers game last week. Many of you a couple weeks ago had the chance to attend graduation. I could talk for 20 minutes on the thanks that goes out for that. It is all hands on deck by our entire team, from our custodial grounds, maintenance crew, our high school staff, our district staff. The campus was absolutely gorgeous. It was a perfect night. The stadium was packed, and that ultimately is the most rewarding thing. I can speak on behalf of the board for this and administration and our staff, is watching those 200 plus kids walk across that stage, 12 or 13 years of experience to get there, and it's what it's all about. It's why every single one of us do what we do in these positions to lead kids. So with that, you know, when graduation comes, that means we're closing out a school year as well. And what a marvelous school year it has been. I started the year this year with our staff really trying to just hit on the importance of it takes every single one of us. And it truly does, and I hope our staff, community, and students and board saw that it takes every one of us, from food service, bus service, paras, teachers, administration, building level administration, just to keep our operation flowing. A lot of times, you know, schools are known for the teachers and your administrators, but as you just saw with Deputy Superintendent Provost's presentation, there's a lot of other departments, such as food service, that feed a lot of meals on a daily basis. the amount of kids we get to school and the miles we cover. So I just want to give a lot of grace for all of our staff, our community, and our kids for wrapping up an amazing school year. We had many great memories. I got to participate in a lot of things for the first that I look forward to taking in many more years to come, but it truly was an amazing year, and that's thankful because of the community support and the staff and the board that we have here. So the last update I have is just a quick update on summer projects. Really just two big projects going on this summer. One is the FFA barn. You'll see that some materials have been delivered, and we have our weekly meeting tomorrow where hopefully we'll hear that the state has granted permits so they can start constructing and building that barn. So that's the last thing we're waiting on. It's in the state's hands. There's not much we can do other than sit and wait patiently and wait for them to issue those permits. So hopefully tomorrow we'll get the news that the permits have been issued. As soon as they're issued, all the construction crews are ready to go, and it will go up very quickly, so much quickly that you may drive by on a Tuesday, and by Friday, it might be fully put up, we've been told. It will go very quick. So, and then the other big project we have is the carpet replacement that the board approved at Page Elementary. That our crews did a fantastic job. Talk about 30 people, all hands on deck in one building, moving furniture, classroom supplies, and just making it happen much quicker than we could have ever imagined. And now we'll be able to move on to the next phase of that project. So subsequent to any questions from the board, that does conclude my superintendent's report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Couch. Next item on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Anyone like to speak? All right, we do have an option at the end of the meeting for another public input session. If you'd like to make a comment at that point. Our next item is committee and liaison reporting. I'm not aware of any committee or liaison group that has met. Mark, you're the only one surprised with the CAPRC?
No,
No?
we meet quarterly.
I know quarterly, yeah.
Yeah, so our next meeting is actually the day after our next board meeting.
Okay.
I don't know who the chair is on the construction committee, but we met to pick, or look at colors.
Yes. Oh, yeah, we did do that.
So, yeah, for the barn. So.
Was it anything other than barn red? Is that red?
Well, okay, so
Oh boy, we're getting into it
there
now.
were a group of kids that chose the red. I'm surprised you didn't choose green, but you know, so.
Green and white would look good.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I know there's more updates coming in the future. So, thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the consent grouping. We're looking for a motion to approve the consent grouping or discussion to pull an item out if so chosen. I'll make the motion that the Board of Education approve the items of the consent grouping 4A through 4I.
Support.
We got a motion by Brock and support by Mr. Winger. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Ms. Hess, I'll do this, a roll call vote?
Price,
Yes.
Stanton. Yes. Flickema,
Yes.
Winger,
Yes.
Hess, yes, and Brock.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you, board. I think, Mr. Couch, at this time, we, in our consent grouping, we did approve some new hires. Mr. Couch would like to introduce some of those very important people that we have here today.
Yes, thank you, President Brock. It is that time of year where it's a hiring frenzy, and we work relentlessly behind the scenes in my office to make sure we are posting jobs strategically at a time, making sure we're responding quickly, and having a systematic process that we rolled out to the board last July and August with bringing on John Washburn as the Director of HR. It was important that we showed the board what our hiring process looks like. Prior to that, each building had their own process, but in alignment with our strategic plan, it's important that we brought that together. So with that, that is also one of the exciting things of this position is that we get to hire some amazing people. And last month, we had the honor to bring a group of people here that were new hires from our April and early May job postings that we had, and now tonight we get to bring another group of individuals from the late May and June. And as of right now, we are almost fully staffed. We have 3 teaching positions that are currently open. 2 of the 3, we're down to the final interviews, and we have 1 remaining position with a candidate pool of 13 that we feel pretty good about. So that, not everybody sees things like a superintendent. I sometimes live on a lonely island by myself, but to me, when we can be fully staffed in June, that is a huge benefit and huge advantage, and there's not many districts that can say that. With that, we still may lose some people over the summer that maybe relocate or have different opportunities or life changes, and that's fine. But the positions that we've known about since January, retirement since April, we've been able to work very hard behind the scenes and hire some great people, and we're 99.9% fully staffed. So kudos to John Washburn and his staff and many of the teaching professionals that we have that serve on those committees. So with that, I'm going to introduce the 3 new administrators that we have, and then I'm going to turn it over to John Washburn to introduce the other teachers that are here. So in no particular order, other than the way they are listed on my sheet, I'm going to introduce these individuals, and if you would please stand. First, we have Addie Rose. Addie is hired as our middle school principal. She comes to us with several years of administrative experience in the tech world, in the school systems, and most recently several years at Godfrey Lee, serving as the middle school and high school principal. So we're excited for her experience and to lead our middle school staff and students. So on behalf of TK, welcome Addie. Second, we have a familiar face that probably many of you in this audience already know. And ironically enough, it's one of the first names I heard before I even signed my contract here a year ago. People started mentioning the name Danny Thompson. And it stood with me through the past year. And as we had a middle school assistant principal job opening at our middle school, Danny had the opportunity to come back home with his family and where he was born and raised. So with that, we have Danny Thompson, who will be serving as the middle school assistant principal. I left out where Danny came from, but many of you know he spent several years here. He decided coaching football would be a lot more fun than being in his hometown, which, hey, I can second that. But chapters close, new adventures begin, kids come along, and now he's pursuing the administrative position, and he's been the dean of students the past 2 years at Stevensville Lakeshore. So welcome home. We're glad to have you. And the next administrative hire that we have is Katie Dorban. Katie is hired as the Thornapple Kellogg High School principal right here in town, and she joins us after serving several years in Caledonia as a counselor, so has that background, and the past couple years as one of the assistant principals up there at Caledonia. So we're looking forward to her leadership in that capacity at Thornapple Kellogg High School. So congratulations to all 3, and thank you, Katie. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Director of Human Resources, Mr. John Washburn.
Thank you. So I don't know about you guys, but the interview process for me is one of the best things I do all year. Just to get to see, all the new candidates, the passion, the enthusiasm, it makes me rejuvenated as to why we do what we do. So I want to appreciate you for that. Like I mentioned earlier this year, it's a pretty intense process. So we have a 10 to 15-minute screening interview. Then we bring them in for a panel interview with staff and other building administrators, a lesson presentation, and then finally they end with Mr. Pouch for a one-on-one interview. So with that, I want to introduce, we have, not everybody could make it tonight, 3 new staff members at McFall. Let's start with Brianna Walla, first grade. Brianna taught 4 years on the east side of the state, so she's relocating to West Michigan. We're very, very lucky and happy to have you here. Alyssa Pellet is going to be our new speech pathologist, and she was in the private sector for years, so she's going to be joining us this year. Welcome. Megan Waldron, approximately 15 years, just came from Portland, where she was a special ed literacy coach with teachers, instructional coach. And she has a whole huge cheering section. Her husband, we've got 4 kids, mom and dad are over here. So really, really happy to have you join us, Megan, so thank you. And then 2 at the middle school, we have Emma Daling, who's going to be one of our science teachers. Emma is a recent graduate of Aquinas. And then I think she has a new best friend in Maggie Wallace, social studies at the middle school, who's also a recent graduate of Aquinas. So, college athletes too. So we're expecting, if we have some openings for coaching, we know where to go, right? And then last but not least, coaching. Eric Hodges was hired as our new varsity soccer coach. Our JV coach for a few years, and I know he's going to do a great job with our program at the varsity level. So welcome, Eric. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Washburn, and thank you, Mr. Pouch, and welcome to the new hires. We're excited that you're here. We're excited for you to get in our buildings and help shape our future residents, hopefully, of this wonderful community. All right, our next item on the agenda is the board items for information discussion, the McFall traffic. Mr. Pouch, is that you?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. So going back in time a couple weeks, I'm going to give Mr. Provost a second here to get a couple things up on the screen. Yes, to those that attended for the new hires, you are welcome to depart, enjoy the sunset, hug your babies, spend time with your family, whatever it is. We will not think any less of you because you're leaving halfway through the board meeting. It's totally fine. You have our permission to leave. You're welcome to stay also. We have some exciting stuff we're talking about. You'll know what's going on in our district. So, yeah, go ahead and put A up. So, in alignment with our Goal 5 of the strategic plan, operations, administration has continued to evaluate solutions to the traffic and safety concerns at McFall Elementary. If you recall, at the May board meeting, administration presented 2 potential solutions to the McFall traffic issue. To our new attendees in our community, you will learn real quickly what the McFall traffic issue is that I'm talking about as we get to August. During that discussion, the board provided valuable feedback and several suggestions for additional exploration of this project. Following the meeting, we met with our transportation team and architectural partners to review the feedback and determine whether these are opportunities that we can explore and will it reduce the scope of the work and some costs while still addressing the underlying safety concerns. One suggestion was to explore stacking, what I'm going to say, because I don't know a better term, but as I've learned, that is the term, to explore stacking the buses in our front lot, which if you look at the diagram up here at McFall, a board member made a great suggestion of, hey, can we reduce some of that $450,000 scope of the project by stacking the buses? When I say stacking them this way here. That's called stacking in the bus world, I've learned. So we looked into that and we explored it and we looked at the pros and cons of it. For perspective, that current lot at McFall Elementary, the way it is right now, would hold just over 5 buses. So 5 buses. It can't hold 6 buses. Just to kind of put it in perspective, if you're picturing McFall, that current space we have up there now, which would be this space, with the amount of space you need between buses, you can hold 5 buses. Keep in mind, our bus fleet is 17 to 20 buses that fall in there, so we would still need a good chunk of scope of work. And then the other concern the architects had in transportation was whether or not the buses would be able to maneuver in a safe manner. And we don't stack buses for a reason. You'll notice at all of our buildings, we do the double stack like that. And that's because that's the way our people are trained and they believe that's the safest route. And I'm not an expert in that. They tell me that. They showed me some research on it and I believed it. So additionally, like I just said, our district does not stack buses for safety reasons. Instead, TK utilizes 2 rows of buses throughout the district to improve student supervision, loading students, and overall safety. Over the past month, I've also had conversations with board members regarding other potential alternatives to the McFall traffic problem. One idea discussed was expanding the existing lot like we talked about and continuing to stack the buses, but knowing that we don't stack buses for safety reasons, that one got ruled out as we would need to do a little deeper dive into the stacking of buses if the board opted to do so. Another idea was to explore constructing an additional drive from Stadium coming through our property from west to east. After consulting with our architectural team, we learned that this option would be a significant cost increase, and it would also require certain approvals from the village, and we had a brief conversation on that possibility with them, and there wasn't much interest in that conversation. Doesn't mean we can't go back and be serious about the conversation, though, but it would take some more collaboration with them. We've also met with representatives from the Village of Middleville on what we're going to call Option A. We met with them a couple weeks ago and reviewed this. Village leadership expressed support for Option A. They were in favor of it and thought it would be great for the village and also great for our school system. They shared many of the same safety concerns that we have regarding the current traffic flow, regarding emergency vehicles not being able to get through there, the accidents, and something that I never thought of was the amount of civil infractions, I'll say, that happen on a daily basis because those cars aren't supposed to be parked there. They could ticket, from what I learned, they could ticket people parked there every day if they wanted to. They've just opted not to because we have good relationships with them, but we all know the current setup is not safe. So we appreciate their support on that, but they are supportive of this project. Given the amount of research, discussion, and evaluation that has occurred on this topic, administration believes we have thoroughly vetted the available options. Options being Option A here, which is, if I recall, I haven't looked at the estimate, $450,000 that we have budgeted in our accounts for school improvement and capital improvement funds. So the money is there for this project if the board wishes to move forward with it. Or Option B, for those that weren't here last time, is to, in short term, take all of our traffic flow and move it to the south of the building. So all parent pickup would be through one line, which there's still some safety concerns there. We're maybe just pushing a problem from one spot to another, and wait times would be significantly longer. So with student and community safety remaining our top priority at Thornapple Kellogg schools, administration recommends that the board either provide any remaining questions regarding Option A for administration to research on, or they'll provide us that and we'll research back, come back in July, but we need those questions soon so we can keep this momentum moving forward. Or consider the moving this project forward to an action item at the July board meeting, where we would then go through the bid process, very likely with a next spring, summer scope of work design being completed. So I'm happy to take any questions from the board, but that is where administration stands on this topic at this time. For those that don't know, you spoke, we listened. This is a concern that comes up in our strategic plan. Progress monitoring has direct alignment to student safety and operations in our strategic plan. I like to say a lot, you spoke, we listened, because we are in the business of kids, we are in the business of people, and we're in the business of keeping everybody safe. And our current setup right now is not safe. So at this point, it's in the board's hands, whether or not you want to move forward on this project. We have shown to our people the options in hundreds of hours looking into this. We could continue to toss around some ideas, but this would be the recommendation based on the research we've done.
Any questions for Mr. Pausch?
Did they give you an idea? Did they give you a rough idea what that option would be coming off of Stadium Drive? Like an estimate?
No, they did not give us a ballpark figure. They just said it would be an increased significant cost, and that's where we left it at. We're happy to go back and press on that to ask them how much more they think it would cost. I would then in turn also press back on the village, because I don't know, what support would we need from them for that project. I don't know. We didn't get that deep into the weeds, but if the board wants me to, we're happy to do that.
And then I guess my next question would be is, I believe that option A might be
The option A.
the, I don't want to say short-term, most cost-effective method, but is there concerns about having similar issues or growing issues throughout the district? Because I know we just redid that parking lot 2 years ago, and we're already addressing concerns again. Has there been, long-term discussions on that?
So it's a great question, and I think that is something that a school board and administration always wants to keep far in front of us, is what do things look like 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10, 15, 20 years? And part of getting that vision is doing what we're doing now with our facility study, so we can start breaking down what that plan looks like. The best information I can give to answer that question is the data doesn't show that TK schools is gonna grow. Birth rates are down. It's as Mr. Provost said, it's not a TK thing. I get an update every day of every news media outlet across the state, and every day there's stuff in there about declining enrollments for districts. So, and if we do grow, we're not gonna grow at a number where we don't fit, if that makes sense. Right now, in a 5 to 8 year lens. 10 to 15 years, I think, is too far to project out, because maybe birth rates boom here in the next couple of years, and we see an influx in the positive. So when you ask me that, 500-ish kids would be the amount of kids I would expect to be in that building. Long-term, does it stay K-1? Or does the board explore other options of what that might look like? Again, that's a conversation for 2 to 3 years down the road, but if we just look at it at the Tommies and the Susies, the number of bodies, the Jimmies and Joes, as we say, I don't see more kids now being in there at the high point to the low point, if that makes sense. So I think regardless of a configuration, if things were to be revisited, this should accommodate that number of students that we'd see in that building, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it kind of brings me to another question I guess I should ask first. Do you see a trend in the amount of parents dropping off versus riding the bus? Because I think that's the change over the last 15 years. Yeah, maybe, yeah, since COVID, I don't know. But is there a trend, is there less buses coming through that building, I guess, even though with the decline in enrollment? Do you see an increase or decrease, I guess, in the buses needed for servicing this district?
So busing is always interesting, because some days you'll look at a bus and there's 17 kids on that bus. The next day you look at it and there's 55 kids on that bus. So it's hard to gauge, because even though there's more parent pickup and drop off, we still have to run the same route. We'd be condensing routes, which now puts kids on buses even longer. So could there be a time where you go from, let's say, 18 buses to 16? I think that's reasonable. I think it's unreasonable to think we're gonna go from 18 to 13 or 14. That would be some significant realignment with bus routes that puts kids on buses for a long time, particularly with our footprint, the way our district is laid out. We have kids that are on the bus upwards of 45 to 55 minutes right now. So I would expect our bus fleet to stay the same, and I would expect parent drop-off and pickup probably to continue to increase or plateau a little bit. I just think the reality is all schools are seeing it. You're not seeing it go back down for whatever reason. There's a variety of reasons to those, pre-pandemic levels. But again, I think that's one that 5 to 8 years out, it could be totally different with less parent pickup and drop off. That one's hard to project, but right now the trend is more and more. There's over 250 cars at McFall on a daily basis for pickup. I've sat there and counted for pickup and drop off, and that's about 50%.
And the last question, I promise. What is the estimate? You said, I think at the last meeting, you said 17 and 19 buses is what we currently need, and what's the max that you think this will hold?
I would have to ask that. So we brought that specifically up, said, hey, is this to scale or not? This is to scale. He just didn't have them in the positions of where they'd be. So they could go all the way up as far as we wanted it to go. So I don't know.
Yeah, because I specifically asked, because there's only 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 buses shown on this. And I was like, we have I think it's 17 is the number floating in my head of how many show up there on a daily basis. And he said, they've scaled it and it would fit. And I think it would go roughly to about the point they show right here.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe starting that curve.
Yeah. And
But they still could go back to, should we have to add a couple buses in the future?
I think to your point, if we needed 5 more buses, that's a good problem to have. But if it stays the same, by allowing the normal bus loop turnaround, you're going to expand and give more room and freedom for drop-off there. So I think the next hurdle would be Lee Elementary.
So this is an estimate. Do we go out to bid for any of these items?
You want to pull that up, Deputy Superintendent Provest? So yes, so, and I haven't looked at the estimate recently, so I don't remember the exact cost. I know it's 432, and they estimated that high, because there is some pieces with the village, particularly with the drainage or retention pond, that is a big swing, and they think that's gonna come in less. So yes, this whole project would have to go out to bid.
And there's over 30,000 in contingency too, so, depending on how that shakes out.
You know, they thought we'd have to move quickly, and there's still maybe a chance, but as some of you know on this board, it's not like it used to be where there were construction crews chomping at the bit to take on jobs. That era is gone. There's a small chance that we could do 2 different bids. We could do a bid for the fall and a bid for the spring. Fall would be pretty disruptive, but it still doesn't hurt to bid it, to see what it looks like. Does somebody have the crews? Can we make it happen for 4 to 6 weeks on our end? Doesn't hurt us to bid the fall, but realistically, it's probably more of a spring job, but you never know. There could be a crew that they want to keep busy into November, and they're willing to make a good bid on it, and they can promise you it's going to be done in 4 to 6 weeks. But realistically, it's probably a spring project. I don't ever like to rush to failure, so we probably would look at bids late summer, early fall, and build the timeline from there. Because the other thing, as some of you know, is that sometimes it's hard to get bids this time of year because they're all out doing work.
Yeah. We wouldn't be doing the project in the school year, right?
No, it would be an option. I don't think it's the best option unless there's a significant savings. And
Imagine the headaches now.
we haven't
One of the loops.
gone down that road because we want to know where the board stands. But the other side of that, if the board was the opposite of, no, let's fix this as soon as we can, let's deal with the short-term headaches, but then it's done, my team would do that. So we wanted both options potentially out there, but realistically, it's a spring, summer project for next year.
Well, I think we, as a board and administration, show good faith that we're talking about it and we're saying, hey, here's a pain point, how can we fix it? So, and if we are talking about it, we move to approval, and we go out for it, at least there's something in the future that says, hey, this is a pain point, we're working on it. Any other questions?
Have they tried option B? Because that doesn't require anything, right?
So the McFall staff was willing to try it the last couple of weeks of school, and we said, let's not do that right now because we don't know where the board stands. They certainly are willing to try it, and they may be willing to look into it next year. They were more than willing to do it. We just, at the end of the year, didn't want to do a sample run because it would cause pretty significant disruption and delays. I think also it would become a new norm. People would adjust, but the city, the village and law enforcement was concerned, are we just shifting a problem from one side to the next, and is it gonna go on to 37? Is it gonna go back into the neighborhood back there? So the village had some concerns about that. If we were gonna to do that, I would wanna sit down with them and talk a little deeper on what that looks like, because the last thing we want is traffic on 37, and then down in that neighborhood too, where our residents live. So I think it would depend what we do here in the next month or two, then the McFall team would decide from there.
Any other questions?
I know trees are good aesthetically, but don't they create visual, like, obstructions also? For 20,000 for trees, I just feel like that's steep. But maybe I'm just, like, it's just an estimate though, right? 20,000 just seems, like, I got a guy, you know what I mean?
Yes,
I
it's
feel like
just
we
an
could-
estimate, and I've heard both sides of it. I've heard boards say, take all the trees out because it's too much maintenance to take care of the trees. And then when you get 80-mile-an-hour winds, I'm dealing with 30 down branches across the district. And then I've had other board members that says, plant more trees because they're aesthetically beautiful.
But
We're-
safety.
Where's the retention pond that they mentioned here going?
We haven't got that deep into the weeds, so I'm not sure yet. I might have, Mark, can you go back to that drawing?
I don't see anything.
And maybe that might have been just one of the holders that, because we didn't know. I know that, again, not my wheelhouse, but I know from the architect's view, that was one of the big variables with the village is water retention pond because of the slope. I think they told us a retention pond wasn't necessary or they had a way around it. I don't know, because we're also trying to honor their time because they've got a lot of time into this. And if we end up not moving forward with it, they don't get paid for any of that work. So I would certainly follow up with that. You know, if the board wants me to, I can come back with more of those details. I can go back to GMB, the architect, and say, you know, we're at a position where it's looking like we're gonna move forward with this. The board would like you to come in and answer more of these architectural questions, and they'd be happy to do that.
Thoughts, question, board? I mean, I think there's an issue here, and I actually attended one of the village meetings, and the officer Ware there said that there's an option where they could make the parents drive around the block until there was time and space for them to pull into the driveway, to pick up their student, and I think that would cause a lot more headaches and heartburn. So I believe we do need to, have some sort of action here as far as, a corrective effort here to, fix the issue. That's my opinion, or do we have anything else?
I think it certainly solves the bus problem and traffic coming off of Main Street. And I'm assuming there's also been discussions about allowing once they drop their kids off or pick their kids up, are they gonna be allowed to go down First Street, I think it is, where we're kind of building next to? Are they gonna be able to utilize that, or do they have to go out to M37 and then around?
This was a topic we brought up because there's part of us as an institution that First Street is very, very appealing for us to own. I mean, that's a valuable stretch for us. Selfishly, if it was a perfect world and we had a magical wand, we could make it a one-way, we could put gates down, we could do a lot of things with it to help in our bag of tricks here. But I hinted to that with the village, and it's their road. You know, they're not gonna wanna depart with that road for a variety of reasons. It is getting redone, so the best I can tell you is the road would stay as is. There's not gonna be a shutdown period, there's not gonna be a left-hand, right-hand turn only. It would stay as an operating road right now.
Because would it be feasible, and this is just another question, but is it feasible, instead of building the road, the turnaround road, whatever you want to call that thing, parallel to First Street, just have the buses dump out onto First Street or come off of First Street? Do you follow me?
Mhm.
So where your mouse is right there, just exit right there,
Saying to go out
to go right out to
right
First
there.
Street, yeah.
I think it would depend on where the buses line up.
Well, the buses would be all lined up in the wider section to the
Yeah,
left.
But if you count them all the way around, if we have 18 going all the way around, it probably depends on where the bus.
So they're thinking the buses would be wrapped around on that drive while loading?
Yeah, I think they're looking to have it come out so it goes on Green Lake Road, because a lot of the traffic from this turnaround right up here could make a left here, and then you'd have all the cars coming, making a
Trying to-
left, mixing with the buses. This would keep them
Essentially
separate.
keep the buses exiting and entering out by the basketball courts, I'm gonna call it,
Yeah.
right? That
Yep.
area, instead of the
They'd
First Street
wrap
intersection
around.
closer to the light.
And then come out here and then to the north.
Okay.
So, board, are we okay with Mr. Pouch maybe presenting this to us at the next meeting? With a little bit more defined, hey, where the, storage, I'm sorry, not the storage, drainage pond and stuff's gonna be, so we can move on this issue? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Pouch, did I give you enough guidance?
Yes, thank you. And I will also invite GMB into that meeting. I don't know their schedules if, it's not like it's flexible because our meeting is already set. So I certainly will invite them in and hopefully they can have a representative here to answer some of those more detailed questions. And it will also allow for them, I can tell them, looks like we're moving forward this. You'll make a few more calls and find out those answers that they didn't know at the time.
Perfect.
Thanks for all your work on that.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you to the team. Next item on our the board items for action, the 2025-2026 budget amendments. Mr. Provost?
Yeah, just, a lot of this is stuff I talked about in the budget hearing. But yeah, this would be the final budgets for all four, which include the general fund, food service, student activities, and library fund. So yeah.
So everything we've gone over already.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so I just try to hit it all in the beginning. If you have any specific questions. but-
Yep. Did any questions arise? All right, looking for the motion regarding the budget amendments.
I motion that the Board of Education adopt the resolution to approve the 2026-2027 general fund, food service, public library, and student activity budgets.
I'll support. We have a motion by Ms. Sandy, support by Brock, and that is a roll, I'm sorry, any discussion on the motion? All right, that is a roll call vote, Ms. Hess.
Winger,
Yes.
Hess, yes. Brock,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Flickama.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Hess, on board. All right, our next item is the 2026-2027 appropriation budgets.
Yeah,
That's
once
it,
again,
then.
this is just appropriation budget, or what I like to call initial budget. This is the first of three for the general fund, or the first of two budgets that we'll have over the course of the 26-27 fiscal year for the other three funds of the food service, student activities, and library fund.
Yep. So starting off next school year. Any questions, Mr. Provost? All right, looking for a motion regarding the appropriation budgets.
Make a motion that the Board of Education adopt a resolution to approve the 2026-2027 general fund, food service, public library, and student activity budgets.
I'll
Support.
support.
All right, we got a support by Mr. Winger and support by Ms. Hess. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Flickama,
Yes.
Stanton,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Brock,
Yes.
Hess, yes. Winger.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Our next item, middle school science curriculum approval. Is this Ms. Wonders or Ms. Couch?
Possibly, maybe the both of us. It just depends what questions you might have. So if you recall at the May board meeting, Megan Wonders, Director of Teaching and Learning, she gave a presentation on behalf of the middle school science teams that spent a year and a half reviewing curriculum. And after that, I don't believe our team has received any questions that we already have not followed up on. So if there's any additional questions now, we'll be happy to answer those. Otherwise, we have no new information.
Any questions? All right, looking for a motion regarding the middle school science curriculum approval.
I move- Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Brenda.
Go ahead.
I motion that the Board of Education approve the middle school science curriculum from MyStar for the 2026-2027 school year.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Price and support by Mr. Flipno. Any discussion on the motion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you, board. Our
There was only one due out or report out after the May board meeting, and it related to policy 5136, wireless communication devices. I had the opportunity to connect with our Neola rep, who in turn connected with their legal team, and the question that was brought up by a board member at the May meeting referred to option 3, and I would like to read that so everybody hears it with me, and then give the recommendations of the 2 routes we can go pending on what the board wants to do. So administration recommended, which is very common when I talk to other superintendents, option 3. So wireless communication devices, including but not limited to those with cameras, may not be activated or utilized at any time in any school situation where a reasonable expectation of personal privacy exists. These locations and circumstances include, but are not limited to, administration recommended including classrooms and gymnasiums, but are not limited to classrooms and gymnasiums, locker rooms, shower facilities, rest bathrooms, and any other areas where students or others may change clothes or be in any stage or degree of disrobing or changing clothes. So there was a question by a board member brought up, concerns over including classrooms and some different legislation on recording, and if a parent came in, they could record that meeting. Per Neola, and as what I just read, that's not what this policy is getting at. This policy is getting at where it says, in any other areas where students or others may change clothes or be in any stage or degree of disrobing or changing clothes. So it strictly has to do with wireless communication devices in areas where students may change clothes. It would be administration's recommendation to keep classrooms simply because sometimes classrooms are locker rooms for different sports programs. Because locker rooms are full, we put teams in a classroom. If the board is not comfortable with that, then I would say in the second reading, we uncheck the classroom and gymnasium. It really doesn't have any ramification on this policy because classrooms and gymnasiums are covered even without them being selected. So it depends upon the board how you want to move forward with that.
Yep, if we're holding a big event here, classrooms are easily used for people to store their stuff and keep it secure. So, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Pouch. Any questions? Thoughts? All right, if not, we're looking for a motion to approve the new board policies. I'll motion that the Board of Education approve board policies volume 40.2 for second reading.
Support.
Motion by Brock, support by Ms. Clifma. Any discussion on the motion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed? All right, thank you, board. All right, this is the second option here on our agenda for public input. Is there someone that would like to make public comments? Anyone like to make public comments? All right. Public comment is now closed. Down to the last item, board comments. Is there any board member that would like to make comment? I first would like to say congratulations to the staff, administration, on a successful school year and excellent graduation ceremonies. They're always great. They're one of the highlights as a board member to see those students move across the stage and be a part of that, even if it is for a couple seconds to share in their joy and their accomplishment. So that is fantastic. I really appreciate that. But again, thank you again to Mrs. Wilkinson for all your years of service, but also everyone else. There's a couple custodians and other support staff that are retiring and some additional teachers that we've had the last couple meetings. Thank you all for your service, and we appreciate the robust plans. But, we really appreciate your time here at CTEC.
And probably a special kudos to the grounds crew with the amount of foot traffic and actual traffic that parks on our grass. It's green, it's lush, and it looks good and presentable,
And all
so.
the branches, I'm sure. that-
Yeah,
the
tons of
grass
branch
stuff.
cleanup, so.
Last week here. Mr. Price, you got something?
I did. I was going to congratulate Mr. Pouch on a wonderful first year. So I appreciate everything that you've done. I think all of us saw great things, but I think even some of us might have underestimated how great of a job that you were going to do here. So we're greatly excited for the future and many, many, many 20, 30 more years. So